All right, it's now 10 a.m. in Singapore, so we're ready to get started. And good thing too, because I don't know if I could handle that picture being up there much longer. Although maybe my face with a mustache isn't much better. But I am excited to be here. And how about that music? That was a surprise for me. I'm a big fan. I mean, if I was feeling nervous before, whew, I'm feeling good now. So, but welcome everyone once again to our Simba product training. I'm super excited about this one. And I'm wondering if some of you might be curious about what exactly I'm going to talk about in this topic of billion-dollar products. But because I get to introduce myself, and hopefully at this point, I don't need very much introduction, we'll be jumping right into things. But to give a little bit of introduction in case there's anyone new, all right, my name is Sam Hughes. I am the regional sales manager for Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei. And I've worked with the country manager in Australia, Mike Myler, to put these weekly trainings together. And we only accomplish it with the help of a lot of amazing staff that we have, as well as our amazing product trainers. But unfortunately from you, you're not hearing from one of them today, right? You're hearing from me. And we are going to not be talking about very much science today. And that is because, to be honest, I am not a scientist. Instead, I am a salesperson. And I am also someone who loves the Unicity products. I have been around them my entire life. I was a guinea pig for them since I was a little kid. And let me tell you, they've come a long way. I remember some of those products I tried probably 20 years ago. They were not very tasty, but we've come a long way and we still have amazing science and now delicious taste as well. But I'm starting to get carried away, and I'm going to start by jumping into and sharing my presentation itself. So let's get that up on the screen and talk about, oops, wrong button, some billion-dollar products. Now, before we get into the topic itself and figure out what on earth is Sam going to talk to us about, what products is he going to refer to, I want to share a video that I came across on TikTok. And yes, that is how young I am. I do use TikTok from time to time. But this video does a great job of helping you really visualize just how much is $1 billion. And so I guess I better switch to do a new share so that we can watch this video. All right, let's see. Hopefully this works all right. So I just found out that there was no sound playing that entire time. Thank you for letting me know. Let's try this again without my headphones, see if that allows us to get the sound going. Because I really want this to sink in for all of us before we talk about billion-dollar products. So let me know if the sound isn't working.
Really crazy. So let's say 1 grain of rice is equivalent to 100K, and 10 grains of rice would be then a million. Well, how much is a billion? So my Saturday night consisted of counting 10,000 grains of rice one by one, just to show you guys how much $1 billion is. Of course I filmed it, and of course I time-lapsed it, and this is playing at, I don't even know, God knows how fast it's playing at. But so now I'm proud to present to you the results. That is $1 billion, where each grain of rice is worth 100K. Look how much rice this is, guys. That's crazy. I just bought you like a Lamborghini right here, and I didn't even notice it was gone. Here's a $5 million house in California. And oh, look, I still have all this money. If you guys like that content, please follow me.
All right. So we now can sort of picture how much $1 billion actually is, right? And it's astounding, right? All those grains of rice, and each one is $100,000. And just alone, right, when he bought that Lamborghini, wouldn't even notice. So when I saw that video, it blew my mind, and it made me think back to some of the times that I've been around Stuart, the owner of Unicity, and he's mentioned some products that he sees of ours as billion-dollar products. But before we get into talking about those, let's examine a little bit more what exactly makes a product worth $1 billion. And I guess I was feeling extra fun because I threw in some other meme images, but hopefully someone appreciates that besides me on this call. So there's really two criteria that take a product and elevate it to the qualifications of being a billion-dollar product. And these are what they are, right? The first one is the product has to address a common and aggravating problem to the user. Now, I use the word aggravating on purpose, right? I didn't choose frustrating or annoying because aggravating captures both of those. This doesn't mean it has to be a life or death problem. And it also doesn't mean it has to be a very big problem. It could be small, it could be big. But it does need to bother people, right? If they have this problem, it needs to be a little bit frustrating, a little bit annoying, or as I put it, aggravating. And that has to be common. It's got to be more than one person. Also, at the same time, the product needs to provide great value to the user. And I'm talking great, not just good, right? It needs to set itself apart from what else is out there. Whether that means it's the only one of its kind, or it just performs much better or is much easier to use than the competition, right? And those are the two criteria that have to happen. They're essential for a product to be worth that quantity of money that we just examined in that video. And so as we look at this, let's look at some examples that have already qualified as billion-dollar products to help us get an idea of what types of things meet these criteria. Well, the first one that I want to talk about is Spanx by Sarah Blakely. This is such a great example. And I can't say I'm an expert on Spanx as I've never used them myself, thank goodness. But I did this, while I was in Singapore in quarantine, I watched the masterclass by Sarah Blakely with my wife on entrepreneurship. And she tells the story of how she came up with this product that is now worth more than $1 billion. And what she realized was there were millions of women who were frustrated, aggravated by the same problem, which was that the pantyhose was uncomfortable or they didn't want it to show when they were wearing pants. And so what she realized was, hey, I can create a product that addresses this problem and provides great value. And it was so simple, right? All she did at first was cut the feet off the pantyhose. And next thing you know, right, it's evolved a few decades later into this multi-billion-dollar company. Amazing, something so simple and a problem so common that people wanted a solution and they jumped on it as soon as they heard that it was out there. Another one that is even more popular is Google, right? What problem could be more common and aggravating than having to find information that you don't know where to find, right? You run into something, you realize, oh, I don't know how to do that. What am I going to do? Right? And the creators of Google thought, you know what? The internet has a whole lot of information out there, but most people don't know how to find it. All we have to do is help them do that. Next thing you know, multi-billion-dollar company that just keeps growing.
And it's all because they took such a common aggravating problem and found a way to provide great value. And the great should be emphasized with Google, right? Because there is plenty of competition. We had Yahoo and Bing and Ask Jeeves and who knows what else, so, right? But no one looks for those, right? No, people go on Bing and they search for Google in the Bing search, on Microsoft search, because Google provides that value that no one else provides. And it's great, it's above the competition. Now we can look at slightly a different example, right? This is one that, to be honest, I'm not that familiar with. I've never played Minecraft, but I would guess that for those of you who have younger kids, you may have some children that do play it. And Minecraft is a video game that allows the player to do almost anything, right? They start in this empty place and they harvest materials and can build whatever they can imagine. And it's a world without boundaries, right? So that provides a lot of value. But what was the problem that they addressed in Minecraft? Well, they addressed this, there was this huge desire for video games and so many people who, well, didn't find anything that was wholesome, right? They didn't want their kids to play video games because they felt that it was ruining their kids' brains instead of growing it. But in Minecraft, right, it helps unlock that creativity. It helps people explore and grow and learn in a wholesome way. And so they found a common problem, addressed it, provided this unique value, and billion-dollar product. Let's look at two more. First one, Apple, right? The iPhone. This is one that we don't need to talk much about because we're all familiar with the story, right? And Steve Jobs took a very common thing that was a problem for a lot of people, right? And so the cell phone was invented, but then he took it to the next level, right? And he used the same problem that was already being addressed, but then gave us great value, right? And he stood apart from the competition, and they continue to do that. The other example I want to talk about, the last one, is Tiffany's, right? Tiffany and Company. I don't know if you saw in the news, but I think it was either this year or last year that Louis Vuitton purchased Tiffany for $16 billion, right? Well, that's a lot of money. And the interesting thing about both Apple and Tiffany is that these are not cheap products, right? And they're not life or death problems either, right? If my problem is that I need to talk to someone, I sure don't need a phone, right? Or I sure don't need an iPhone. There's a lot of options, and it would actually be difficult for me to find a more expensive option than the new iPhone. And yet, that's what I use. Same thing with Tiffany's, right? It's difficult to find a more expensive diamond ring than what Tiffany's will sell you. And you can get one that looks very similar, maybe even identical in some cases, but costs several $1,000s less. And yet, both of those companies realized that there was another problem on top of just needing a wedding ring or just needing a cell phone. And that was that people wanted to have the best, right? They wanted to be able to show their worth or their love. And that was one way of doing it. And so these are examples of companies that are very premium and yet still reach that billion-dollar mark because they meet both the criteria. They address common aggravating problems and they provide great value to the customer, to the user. But now, well, enough about all these different examples, right? You came here to hear about Unicity. And so, well, what about our products? And we're going to get into this in a moment, but before we do, I want to say that Unicity, right, as we know, has premium products, right? These are products that we've invested millions of dollars into the science of them, into the R&D, to having clinical studies, into patents. And there are a lot of products that provide that premium, that great value that we mentioned. And if I wanted to talk about all of them, we would run out of time. But I'm not going to talk about all of our products. In fact, I would say that some of our products don't make the cut to be $1 billion product by themselves. And there's multiple reasons for that. The most common one is that they are one of many products that address a similar problem. And in that, right, it's difficult for them to set themselves apart. They provide great value. In almost every case, they perform at the highest level. But sometimes it's a small difference that's less important to people. And so that's why I'm not going to be talking about every product in our product list. And instead, I'm going to focus on 2 products, or I guess 2 types of products that by far meet these criteria, both of the ones that we have established. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this in the first place is because as consumers of Unicity products, or as distributors of Unicity products, it's very important that we understand the incredible value that we have to partake of ourselves and that we have to share. All right, this is not some run-of-the-mill product that we can suggest to our neighbors, all right, or that we get to use to get a benefit. Rather, we have some things in our closets right now, right, in our pantries, that are literally worth over $1 billion, and that we have the ability to share with the world. Well, let's get in and talk about the first of these. So the first of these is the legacy product, right? This is what Unicity was built on, the BIOS life, right? And it's come a long way. This was actually the product I was referring to that I tried 20 years ago, and I was thinking, wow, it's come so far, and that it tastes so good now, whereas it didn't before, right? But these 4 products all fit in a similar area, right? They serve very similar purposes. And they all definitely qualify as billion-dollar products. But let's talk about why that is, right? How do these meet the criteria, right? And so the first question is, well, what problem does it address? What problem do those products, Balance, BIOS Life S, Slim, BIOS Life C, right? Wherever it is in your market or whichever one you prefer, what problem does that address? And is it a $1 billion problem? Well, for those, as you all know, this addresses the problem of cardiovascular disease and metabolic syndrome. Well, I don't need to talk about how that's way more than $1 billion problem. That's $1 trillion problem. Right? Cardiovascular disease alone kills more people in the world than every other cause of death. Right? That's something we learned in Dan Hughes' presentation on why Unicity, and it's mind-boggling, right? But all of these parts of cardiovascular disease or metabolic syndrome are addressed by those BIOS Life products, right? They directly help with overcoming these, with getting past these, with, in some cases, curing them, right? Or helping someone to improve their situation. That's great value. And we can talk more about the value, right? There's so many, this is just a few bullet points that I came up with on the spot. And like I said, I'm not one of the product trainers. I'm not a scientist, but it doesn't take a scientist to know that these benefits are worth so much to so many people, right? Those problems that we just looked at, well, what do you think? Would you say these qualify as an aggravating problem? We know they're common. It's painful how common they are. And we know that they're aggravating too. And yeah, there's some people out there that have some of these issues and, well, they don't care enough to do anything about it. And that's sad. We hope that they turn around so that we could help them. But for how many there are of those, there's so many more that hate having to deal with these problems. They want that solution. And so they're looking for these types of value. And one of the things I want to point out that really takes these BIOS Life products and has them from being a good value to a great value, there's really 2 things, right? One is that it's proven, right? We have the scientific clinical studies That alone sets this apart from so much of the competition. But the other thing is how easy it is, right? It requires such a small lifestyle adjustment to mix this before your two largest meals. It doesn't even taste bad, right? And that adds even more value to this because it allows anyone to adopt this into their life, to let this be a part of their lifestyle and to receive that benefit. It's so much easier to get than a new iPhone or a Tiffany's ring. And it provides so much more value than a simple Google search or a new pair of Spanx. And so the BioSlive products are already sold more than $1 billion in their history, right? But it's not changing, right? The value of this product isn't going away in time. In fact, it's growing. And that is even more unique for most $1 billion products. And so that's the first one I wanted to cover. This is a treasure of ours in Unicity. And it's important that we understand that. We understand the scale of what this can do, of what we can help, who we can help with this. Now let's talk about the other one. And some of you might be able to guess what it is, because you probably think I talk about it too much. But if you guessed Unimate, you were right. And this is the one that made me think of the topic in the first place, because I remember distinctly years and years, well, not that long ago. I'm not that old to say years and years ago, I guess. But several years ago, before Unimate was launched, in fact, when it was first introduced to Stuart, and he started to use it to see, hey, what is this product? Is it any good? Well, I remember him distinctly coming down and saying, we are making this product because this is $1 billion product. Well, how did he know so soon, right? What was it about that product and what it did when he started to use it that made him instantly know, with all his experience in business, in this business and sales, to recognize it for $1 billion product? So let's see if it fits the criteria and how it does. Well, first, what problem does it address? This is not the only problem it addresses, but the reason I bring this one up first, the problem of stress, is because this would be the most common problem throughout the entire world today, right? It afflicts everyone out there. No one is immune to stress. And to some of us, it leads to a lot more, or it's caused by a lot of other additionally difficult problems. And Unimate is a product that directly addresses stress, lack of motivation, lack of energy, lack of productivity, lack of focus, depression, and more. I know the fact that I can say with complete confidence that no one on this call is immune to all of those already tells me, hey, we've checked the first criteria. It's met this. The fact that I can say that we all know, everyone that we know has dealt with some of these or deals with them on a constant daily basis, tells me yet again that this meets that first criteria, right? This addresses a common and very aggravating problem to everyone, right? Well, what about the second criteria? Let's talk about that. What value does it provide? Well, provides us with clean, healthy energy that has no crash, right? No sugar crash, no artificial caffeine that drops through our system. It has a motivation, it gives us a motivational boost that results in increased productivity while we're working or we need to get stuff done. It has a clinically proven happiness increase, right? I can't even imagine before I came across this that you could clinically prove that something would improve your happiness. And yet that happened with Unimate. It is shown to be improving our performance in aerobic and anaerobic activity, as well as in your actual productivity. So that's work and play. That's everything we do. I guess the only thing it well, actually, I've heard that it does improve that as well, so I won't say that. Sometimes you got to catch yourself, right? And on top of that, it has that mood enhancement, right? I'll often mention to people something that is kind of a common joke in our family, but my mom will say that she doesn't want to talk to my dad in the mornings until he's had his Unimate, because she knows that the conversation is going to be more pleasant once he's had it. And then there's so much more, right? I'm not even mentioning the health benefits. And if you are curious about learning more about the health benefits and all those other health problems and benefits that it provides, well, there's an opportunity to learn more about it tomorrow at the same time, which I'll mention at the end. But this is a product that it really is incredibly unique. And the fact that we have a patent on this product, that as a Unicity distributor, we have exclusive rights to distribute this product throughout the world, is incredible. It's amazing. And so this is something that is important for us to understand, right? So that we're taking advantage of this. So we're finding opportunities to help those people. These problems that people are afflicted by, right? Each of us know how aggravating those are, how painful that can be. And to think that we are surrounded by other people that deal with this and that we have a problem that can help them with those, well, sometimes I wonder what we're waiting for. And so I want to finish up the slideshow part of this conversation, because there's a few more things that I'd like to say about this before we finish. And right, we're cruising. This will be one of the shorter ones, right, that we have sometimes with these Simba product trainings. But I want to share this quote and talk about why this quote, right? As you might be reading, it says, "Fear is good. Like self-doubt, fear is an indicator. Fear tells us what we have to do. Remember our rule of thumb. The more scared we are of a work or calling, the more sure we can be that we have to do it." It's a very interesting quote. And this is a quote from the book, The War of Art. So not The Art of War, but The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And just at dinner today, Stuart mentioned that he'd finished the book yesterday for maybe the 50th time that he's read it. That's how important he thinks this book is. And this is one of the principal lessons that we pull from it, right? That if we want to improve and achieve these happiness in life, well, then we need to improve in our calling. And we have to overcome resistance, right? In this book, he talks about how fear is equivalent to resistance. And that's an indication of what we should do. If there's something that we're feeling a lot of resistance to do, right? Getting up and doing that workout, eating that healthy, or avoiding eating, breakfast if we're doing intermittent fasting, making some calls, getting that work project done, right? Whatever it is that we're feeling that resistance to, that's a very, very good indication that that's what we should focus on doing next. Right? And there's so many people that, right, they have to make this call. They know it's important, but they'll think, you know what, I got to put that off. They're feeling resistant to it, and I'll spend some more time planning for this meeting that's coming up. Right? And they'll get caught up in that because they're avoiding the thing that they feel the most resistance to. Well, why am I talking about this, right? Why this quote at the end of this conversation? The reason I bring this up is because that's additional value provided by Unimate, right? The resistance we feel towards the most important activities that we should be doing throughout our day, well, that resistance can be diminished, right? We can make it smaller by increasing our motivation to overcome that resistance, to get past it and do those activities, right? Get that workout done, get that work project finished and completed, make those calls that we're feeling nervous about, right? To lay out that presentation, or get up on stage and do that presentation and do a great job. This is something that we can directly apply. This is a product that is a tool for helping us become better, for helping us progress, right? And that is worth billions of dollars. And I'll say something that maybe some of you are aware of, but maybe not, right? So let me stop sharing the screen for a second. But we have a new leader in Japan. And this new leader has achieved the diamond rank in Unicity in only 2 years. Now that is an incredibly quick time to qualify at that rank. And the product that he has based his entire business on in these last 2 years is Unimate, right? Because he sees the millions of people he's surrounded by in Japan and outside of Japan who are dealing with the problems that Unimate addresses. And they're living without the value that Unimate provides. And so he saw that opportunity and he jumped on it. He chased it down and is benefiting from it, right? He's benefiting from the billion-dollar product that's in his pocket already. And the same thing applies to the BioSlive products, right? There's been multiple diamonds in Unicity who have used those to build their business. And so this is what I wanted to share, right? This is what I want to talk about because my job at Unicity is to help each of you to do that same thing, right? To take these products that Unicity provides us and to help them make your life better. Not just through using them, but through capitalizing on the value that they present to others. And that's my mission. That's what I'm here for. And so that brings us to the end of the presentation. But what I wanted to say before we have a quick Q&A, and this, we'll see how this Q&A goes, because if you're giving me science questions, I'm not going to do a great job of answering them. In fact, most of them I might just say, send that to our product trainers. Well, we'll see, because I hope that there's some questions that I can help with. But before we open it up and we start sending in some questions, I want to mention that tomorrow is actually our launch event for Unimate in Malaysia. And this is something I'm very excited about, right? Because this is a product that I'm working hard to get to be available in all of our markets. And some countries make it more difficult than others. I know our friends in Indonesia are probably as frustrated by that as me. But we're working hard to try and find ways to bring this everywhere. And tomorrow we get to celebrate bringing it to Malaysia. And so if you want to learn more about the science behind Unimate, right? Because I didn't get into that at all. If you want to become experts on that, which I advise you do, you become experts. Because this can be, as we said, a game changer. Well, then I hope you'll tune in tomorrow. Even if you're not in Malaysia, it's a great opportunity to learn. And there's also going to be some fun promotions that we'll be talking about. And so we'll look forward to that. But on that note, I would love to spend some time doing a Q&A right now. We've got some minutes. It's only 8:33 p.m. here. And so if you have questions, especially regarding the topic that I've discussed or something relevant, then I'd be happy to answer them. And if you have product focused questions that are very scientific based, well, then if you're in Singapore, Malaysia, or Brunei, Claudia is your product trainer and she's going to be able to help you out with all those. If you're in Indonesia, go to Winda, right? She's a genius. And for those of you in Australia, McKenna is the person to go to, right? And they'll be able to get you those answers and help you out. If you're in another country, well, we're very happy to have you here with us. And hopefully you know how to get a hold of your product trainer. If you don't, you can always reach out to us and we'll connect you with them. So far, it looks like no questions have come in. Might make it easy for me. Oh, here we go. Finally got some. Okay, so Sunan asked, when is our billion products going into billion population China? Hi, very interesting question. So that is one that we'd have to ask to our chief operating officer, right, and the regulatory department to see, is that something they have planned? Fortunately, right, Unimate, there's a billion people throughout Southeast Asia. And so maybe once we get a billion people using it throughout here, then we'll need to be worried about the billion population China. How about that? And then our friend Inghai asked about, so what is exactly Unicity Balance? Unicity Balance is essentially the same thing as Slim, right? But it's the marketing and version for the US, well, North and South America, as well as Europe. But as far as the purposes, what they do, right, the clinical studies behind them, those are the same as the ones that support Slim. And so Balance is just a different version. It's also what we have in Australia, right? So those of us in Australia, those recognize Balance. In Singapore, Malaysia, we'll recognize BioSlife S. Suli Chong, well, Suli, my good friend Suli, I was talking with her at 6 a.m. this morning. Now it's 8 p.m., 8:30. It's been quite a day today. Luckily, I got to look forward to this at the end. But she asked if there's a plan to bring Unimate into India. And you know what, Suli, I'm going to write that down and ask it the people who will know, and I'll get back to you. All right? I can send you a WhatsApp as soon as they get back to me. Unimate to India. Awesome. Well, on that note, we finish up with these questions. I'm going to finish up the Zoom before we send any more, because I think everyone's probably ready to get back to work. Maybe start experimenting with the Unimate. Wait, actually, one last thing before we finish. I just want to share my favorite way of taking Unimate, because I know that that's been a big turnoff for a lot of people in adopting this product, right? Is that the first time they try it, they think, oh, that's pretty bitter. I don't know if I could get used. It doesn't taste as good as my morning coffee. So I don't know if I want to make that switch. Well, what I recommend you try doing is first have it hot, right? Definitely, this is a drink that should be taken hot, right? As if it were a coffee or a tea. And the way that I love to have it, and this is something that Stuart introduced me to, is you take a lemon, right, and slice it up. I like to put in about half a lemon into mine. And so I'll slice up half a lemon, put it in that hot water, the Unimate, and just let that sit for a bit. And for some reason, whether it's lemon or lime, ooh, it hits the spot. I'm telling you, when you try that, you'll start to fall in love with it. And even more so as you feel that taste. So on that note, I'll be curious to hear what you think of that as you try it. And also curious if you guys have your own recipes or mixes that you do with Unimate, please send them my way on Instagram. I'd love to see those. But we'll talk to you all, maybe see some of you tomorrow, and have a great night.